Today we are going back to the basics and we're going to walk you through what you need to know before you start climbing. These are fundamentals that most new climbers don't know, so if you're new to climbing, you're definitely going to want to watch this video. But first, before we get too far, what is the difference between climbing with a rope where you have a harness and a belayer and bouldering? The only difference is the routes are typically a little bit shorter for bouldering. And what does this mean for you? It means whether or not you are just getting into climbing where you are wearing a harness and you're using a rope and a belayer, or you're getting into bouldering, what I'm going to go through in this video is going to be applicable to you. Now for the fundamentals. Let's talk about the 5 different types of climbing holds. We have the jug, which is the most basic climbing hold. It's where you're able to put all of your fingers over the ridge of it and you have a nice curvature in your grip, the easiest of the holds to hold on to, and you'll see a lot of these in the beginner routes. Hold number 2 is called a pocket, and that's any type of hold that has a hole in the middle of it and it's like a pocket, so you're going to stick your fingers in the pocket itself. Oftentimes you'll have a 3-finger pocket hold, a 2-finger pocket hold, and what we call a mono, which is where you only place 1 finger in at a time. Don't worry though, these easier routes, you're not going to have any monos. You may have a couple of 2 fingers, but most of them are going to be 3 or 4-finger pockets at the beginning of your climbing experience. The next type of hold is called a crimp. And with a crimp, instead of being able to put your entire fingers over the ridge of it, you're only going to be able to get your pads on top of it, 1 or 2 pads on. These are more challenging holds, but a biggest thing that you need to know is that you're going to try and keep your hand, your palm open as much as possible. You can put your thumb on the side of it, however, that is also a really common way to use crimps, and it just does give you a little bit more stability getting your thumb on there. The next hold type is called a sloper. Slopers can be really challenging because unlike jugs and crimps, there isn't a clear edge where you're supposed to put your fingers. Instead, you have an open hand grip. This is a smaller sloper that you're seeing right now where you are able to put your entire fingers on. You might be able to grip it a little bit easier, but a lot of times slopers are so big that you're just going to be using friction with your entire palm, all of your fingers to grip that hold. The next type of hold is called a pinch. And a pinch is when you're going to be doing just what it sounds like. You're going to be pinching the hold with your thumb on one side and your fingers on the other side. These are also called lobster claws, depending on where you're from. So keep that in mind when you see a hold like this. It's probably meant to be pinched. Another handhold type that's really just an honorary mention is a foothold. And these are little tiny chips. I often see beginners thinking that they're supposed to use their hands on it, but for those beginner routes, those little tiny chips are actually meant for your feet. So when you see these types of holds, you're gonna wanna identify what the hold types are so you know where you need to be gripping it. For example, this jug, as you can see on one end of it, one edge, it's really easy to grip. You're going to keep that in mind, so if the jug is turned sideways slightly, you also want to turn your hand slightly to make it much easier to use. Now that we know the hold types, let's talk about how you can use them with your feet as well. Consider climbing without your fingers. The same can be said if you're not climbing with your toes. Your toes are like little fingers on your feet, and these climbing shoes are going to help you leverage that strength in your toes. The strongest toe is the big toe, so you're going to want to try and use your big toe as much as possible. That means you're going to place your foot precisely on a foothold where your big toe is going to be what's holding most of your weight. This is really important because I see a lot of very beginner climbers using the arch of their foot, or they're just placing their foot without thinking about it. But really, you can leverage your feet to make climbing much easier. Additionally, when people start using their toes, they tend to just stick the toe right into the wall, whereas to leverage your big toe the most, you actually need to pivot your foot so that your heel is closer to the wall and your big toe is going to be on the inside closest to the wall. This does a couple of things for you. One thing that's really clear in this demonstration right here is that by pivoting your foot, you have much bigger reach. You can go to the side a lot easier than you could if your toes were straight on. So keep that in mind when you are placing your toe. Try and place it where the inside of your foot is closest to the wall and your big toe is making perfect contact with that hold. Now we have a pretty good idea of what we need to be doing with our hands, how we're gripping the holds, as well as what we need to be doing with our feet. So let's talk about actually getting up the wall. And the biggest thing here is instead of using your little arms, you're gonna want to use your legs as much as possible. Think about it. You are standing up and walking on your legs, on your feet. Hold your body weight all the time. whereas your arms are not so used to holding that much weight all the time. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and position our legs in a way that support our body the best. So a good beginner tip here is when you are climbing, try and lift your body like you would in squats or lunges, and try and keep your arms as straight as possible. When you do this, you ensure that you're putting less weight on your biceps and shoulders and more weight in your legs. This is an essential skill not only for beginner climbers, but it's something that you use for the entirety of your climbing experience. You're always going to be trying to figure out how to put as much weight in your feet as possible. So this could look like putting your legs in a better position where you can lift up your body. A lot of times I see climbers feel like they're stuck and they're completely bent legs. All they have to do is stand up and they have so much range. One thing that's really going to help with this is you're going to move your feet before you move your hands. When you move your feet before your hands, you're able to really put more weight in your feet to make the movement to the next hold. Now, because you're watching this video, I already know that you're interested in learning climbing or getting better at climbing, so you're going to want to click subscribe to this channel, as I'm going to keep continuing providing you these types of videos where I walk you through what you need to know so you can get better. Next, let's talk about indoor climbing specifically and how to know what holds you're supposed to use, where you're supposed to start, and where you're supposed to end. When it comes to indoor climbing, they're typically matched with either the colors of the holds, like in this gym, or sometimes you'll have a gym where they use like red tape. Every hold that has red tape on it, you can use that hold to reach the top. Either a staff member on your first visit will tell you, or you'll be able to tell just by looking at the route, okay, all of these are purple, that must be one route. Then there's a starting hold and an end hold. Starting holds are indicated in this gym by the grade or how difficult the climb is. So in this case, this climb is considered a V1 climb. Because there's only one tag on this, we know that both our hands are going to start on that hold where the tag is. Additionally, the climb doesn't start until both your feet are on. So either your feet need to be on holds that are of the same color on the same route, or they need to be smearing against the wall. Keep in mind, not all the time you're going to have your foot on a foothold. Sometimes they're just going to be pressing against the wall itself. Once you have both your hands and feet off the ground on the route, then you can start. You're going to follow the route based on the color. So if you are in a gym that uses the color of the handhold, then follow and only use holds of that color. If your gym is where you use tape to indicate where you are going to be, then go ahead and follow the route only using holds that have that color tape on it. Then to finish a route, you're going to place both your hands on the finish hold. This gym makes it really easy by showing you a hold that says finish at the top. Oftentimes though, gyms will have an indication of just 2 pieces of tape, or you could be on a wall where you actually climb on top of the wall, or you're supposed to touch the top of the wall. However, the basics are the same. You need to make contact with both hands on that hold. So oftentimes someone will make a really good hold with their right hand or their left hand, and then they just tap the hold in a controlled manner. This means that you can't just smack it and fall and count that as a clean send. You actually have to be in control. Your body has to be there for at least 2 seconds before you can get off. Now that you've finished the climb, how do you get down? Well, most climbing gyms have different holds that are meant to help you climb down. For example, this one has brown handholds that you can use to get down, and you're going to climb down as much as possible. I see a lot of beginners jump from this point, and you just have a much higher risk of injury when you jump. So it is ideal that you climb down as much as possible before hopping up. Next, let's talk about staying safe while you're at the gym, as well as some basic gym etiquette. The first thing that you need to know is that there are fall zones. That means that there is a possibility that the climber who's on the wall will fall, and you need to kind of figure out where they would be if they're falling. For the most part, if you see that there's a mat area where there's a nice big cushion, and then there's an area of cement, for example, like in this gym, then when you're walking around, make sure you're on the cement. That way you don't risk walking underneath a climber and risk getting hurt or being pancaked by a climber who accidentally falls. This is not only important for your safety, but it's also important for the person who falls. It's much safer for them to fall on the cushion than it is for them to fall on you. An important skill that everyone needs to work on is falling. I've seen some really scary videos and some people at the gym where they actually sprain their wrists or ankles because they don't know how to fall properly. So let's talk about how you fall properly. If you are really scared and you are confident that you're not going to make it, try climbing down instead of just jumping. But if you are going to fall, then this is what you need to do when you fall. Make sure that your knees are bent and allow your body to roll backward while tucking in your head. Whatever you do, don't put your arms out to try and catch yourself. If you try and catch yourself with your arms, you are at a much higher risk of spraining your wrist. Additionally, by keeping your knees bent, it's less likely that you're going to get any sprained ankles or anything like that because the weight distribution will be much better. So if this is your first time climbing, it may be a good idea to climb up a couple of feet and try this. When we're talking to younger climbers, oftentimes we recommend that they grab their knees. This is a guaranteed way to prevent them from supporting themselves with their wrists, and it also helps them stay in that ball-like position. So if you're having a really hard time keeping your head up or something like that, you may benefit from grabbing your knees when you're falling. Before hopping on a climb, make sure that you pay attention to the route that the climbers are next to you. You don't want to be in a position where the routes intersect and you accidentally get in their way, or they fall and they fall on top of you. So pay attention and don't hop on the wall if you see them climbing. And a nice piece of etiquette here is you can definitely try routes over and over and over again, but make sure you're giving other climbers a chance to climb. If you keep on getting back on and back on, it can be really frustrating for other climbers who want to be on routes nearby, but can't because you're in the way. So yes, it's okay to try routes over and over again, but give other people a chance after each time you fall. Now that you have these basics down, the next step is for you to climb. Climb, climb, climb. The more you climb, the more natural you will get with climbing and the easier these things will become. Of course, once you feel ready, I have made many videos on how to improve your climbing, so you're definitely going to check those out. Here's a playlist just for you. Additionally, many new climbers have issues with their skin where they feel sore or maybe they get tears or flappers, and for you, I've made this video. It helps you care for those type of wounds as well as prevent them from happening again in the future.